Hello, everybody, and welcome to Loremaster's Investigations, where we take your topics of the tabletop role-playing game spectrum and talk about them. I'm Cody.
And I'm Joe, Frog Joe.
Ooh.
I was cursed by my half-brother Loki, into being a frogman. Just like that hit comic Thor, where he became a frog for, a while. Like a whole arc, I think.
Nice.
Yeah, Thor's weird. I love it.
Thor is weird. How have you been?
I have been all right. I've been keeping it nerdy. I've been rewatching Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Nice, yeah, because that just came back onto Netflix, did it not?
Onto Netflix, yeah. And it was one of those deals where I was like, my Netflix said I didn't watch it, and I was like, no, I have watched this Netflix show that I've watched this, so I'm rewatching it. I'm also watching Clone Wars, which is it's kind of this fascinating curio of like I kind of love it and I kind of hate it at the same time. It's weird.
Nice.
The cartoon. Yeah. How about you? What have you been up to, my man?
Oh, I've been kind of all over the place. I actually haven't been able to. I'm kind of having hobby ADD at the moment, where I'll like start something and then because like I was playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey last week. And I stopped playing that. I streamed Persona 5 Royale, or at least like the first 7 hours of it on Monday. And that was fun. I'm playing through Fandom Doctrine some more. Okay. I tend to go back to that game whenever I need like my XCOM fix because it's just got this like long arc of like doing stuff. The game takes forever to get through like one campaign, so I've never actually finished it, but I've just been like slowly playing through it when I like feel that need. I also started watching The Night Shift Manager. It's on
the FX show?
Well, it's on Amazon Prime. And it's got Tom Hiddleston in it.
That's like a crimey noir-y thing, right?
Yeah, it's like a spy thing. I've been prepping for my secondary. I run 2 games, and our game, you and I's game, is very much a almost like a X-Files procedure series.
Right.
Yeah,
procedural.
Yeah. And the game that I'm going to be running with my other group that's just starting, they're doing spy stuff. So I've kind of been in a spy kick lately to get inspiration and stuff. Nice. So that's kind of what I've been up to. Yeah.
Oh no, Cody.
Huh.
Look over there in the corner.
Well,
it's the angry tome that glares at us. It starts glowing when it has a question for us.
Oh, yeah.
To start talking to.
You know, I thought... My goodness. I thought we taped that and, put it in a room that couldn't be gotten.
No, when we signed the Loremaster investigation pledge, it said that the book will haunt us to our dying day. It was the fine print.
Oh, that's why you don't deal with devils. Just, for anyone out there.
Wait, was it a devil or was it a demon? I always get those two confused. Is it devils who have contracts?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Demons are more, well, at least in the D&D universe, are just chaos incarnate, and they go around killing things and
the universe. Bad. Carry on, Cody.
Yeah. So, we have a fan question today.
We have to open up the book. Blah, blah, blah. Thud.
It's good Foley work.
Some good book Foley.
Yeah. So the question for today is how to keep combat quick and punchy. And this is in reference to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition because...
Yes.
And this is my preamble. Before I answer this question and how I think that... how to do this, in my opinion, one of D&D 5e's weaknesses is the fact that combat can be really slow with a inexperienced DM, and more or less the more people you add, the worse this situation gets. And it's because there are certain classes that and mostly the magical ones, that leave you with decision paralysis because of the fact that there are millions of spells and just so many like different things at 1 minute, or at your disposal rather. I mean, I've been running a 6-player game for what is this, 4 years now?
Something like that. And it is one of the slowest parts of the game where somebody picks their magic class for the first time and they haven't settled on their core kit yet. And they're like, and what happens, at least in my experience, is when you have these slow bits, people tend to tune out, and suddenly it is my responsibility to not only put the battle forward, but continue to reiterate things that I shouldn't have to, because I've said them before if players were paying attention. But it's not really fair to be like, hey, pay attention to one of your characters going at what the ideal action is for 20 to 30 minutes. So that's true.
That being said, I spent years looking for a way to make combat faster for our group without necessarily nerfing or hindering the players.
Yeah.
I tried re-rolling initiative. I tried using a timer. I tried a lot of things, and I have some that work and some that I'm sure we're going to talk about will probably kind of blend over each other a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing to make combat quicker, in my opinion, which I found from various sources, but I finally started to give it a try probably beginning of last year, which was the fast slow initiative.
Yeah.
Which it basically, if you've been listening to this podcast or these shows, you've probably heard us talk about this, and we've described it a few times. But for those of you, for this being your first time, welcome. Basically, the player gets to choose whether they want to act fast or act slow. If they act fast, they get to use either one action or one movement, but not both. If they take a slow turn, they get to use their full action. And players always go first, then the NPCs.
Yeah.
So basically what that means is if you are a ranger who sits in the back and mostly you're shooting your arrow, you can get your turn over really quickly by just taking a fast turn and be like, I shoot the thing. You roll some dice, you do some damage, you're done. But for those who have, more technical terms or need to do something special, they kind of have time to think about how they're going to do that while everybody else is going. And for me, this solved a crap ton of issues, but ultimately it kept the game moving.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if somebody couldn't decide what they wanted to do, most times they would just attack, But do you have anything that you'd like to add before I go into my other points?
Yeah. Because every table is going to work a little bit differently. Every table is going to have some different levels of engagement and things like that. So, we kind of found that the standard initiative system wasn't quite working for us in a lot of ways. But if you're a group, at our table, that wasn't working. So we tried lots of different things over the years. As Cody mentioned, I think that there's some beauty in trying to find things that keep the spirit of the game alive without necessarily sacrificing core gameplay elements or things that work or things that make D&D feel like D&D. For instance, having a map or whatever. There's theater of the mind stuff, obviously, but there's something fun about having those minis, or if nothing else, a dot on a screen. And so don't be afraid to try out new things, and don't be afraid, don't be afraid to try out new things is my big suggestion. The biggest one I have kind of overall, is that, it doesn't necessarily put people on the spot, in quite the same way. You get the choice to decide if you want to go fast or slow. And if you choose fast, then that means chances are you have something ready to go, or, I think like a major, it also frees up other things as well. So for instance, we had an encounter where a player had a really, really good idea and they were so low in the initiative that like they basically sat there just like gnawing their face off to do the thing that they wanted to do because of how low they were in the initiative order. Whereas with, you know, this fast slow initiative that we work with now, that player could have very easily shouted out fast and done the thing first, right? You know, sometimes I think there's sometimes elements of the fast slow initiatives that work better around a physical table than via online, but at the moment it's something that's working really well for us to make combat like really move. So yeah, what's your next point, my man?
Yeah, so this is all so this is kind of half the question, right? This is how to make it fast, right?
Yeah.
But the question also asked, how do you make it punchy? How do you make it feel important? How do you draw people in, I guess, for people who may not necessarily always be interested in combat, you know, punchy combat? And I would say this is pretty tough. This is something I've been honing over the many, many years I've been doing this, and I'm still picking up new things, you know, every day. But that being said, I think a way to make combat not be drawn out is making sure that killing all the enemies on the table is not the main objective when dealing with a lot of enemies. So we've seen this before. The party finds the dragon's treasure room. Queen Dragon Zoltan summons her kobold army, and the players are ready to fight in this big climactic battle. And the last like 30-45 minutes is just these 3 or 4 kobolds that just won't seem to die because the dice just aren't in your favor, and it just kind of becomes this back and forth. I hit you, you hit me. It's boring. Now, a way to answer this, or to make this a little punchier, you know, cut out that fat of, you know, the 30-45 minutes where there's no danger. You know, maybe when the queen has been defeated, you can have a montage of the rest of them being defeated by the party in this very triumphant way, or maybe the rest run because they no longer have a ruler to command them. I mean,
sure,
anything to avoid cleanup, especially when there's like no danger on the table, is, in my personal opinion, the best thing you can do to make your combat not boring.
Yeah, I would say along those same lines, I always find it really rewarding as a player when I have an environment where there's like a variety of weird and different things to try out during a combat. So like nothing is more boring to me than like facing like a like 4 or 5, you know, bandits on like an open plain or whatever. And this largely depends on the class that you play as well, but like at the moment my character has a grappling hook, so like I'm always looking for things to like kind of like, you know, latch onto and like swing around and move myself in weird ways around the combat. This doesn't necessarily help with the quick part, but I feel like it makes it punchy because it makes it look and feel more cinematic. Because I personally find that like if I'm thinking about a combat creatively, then I'm more likely to stay engaged in what's going on for longer. So, you know, like when I'm trying to find maybe that weird or strange or unconventional or non-conventional, whatever that word is, thing to do during this combat, then I find that I'm gonna be more likely to stay in the game and stay in that headspace. That's me personally. Like whenever I can see other ways to do cool or interesting or engaging stuff, I always find myself to be having more fun in combat in general. So yeah, things along the same lines. So
yeah, absolutely. I think another thing to add to the punchiness of your combat is some sort of timer. And what I mean by this is I think there should be a clock for each encounter. Something should happen to make the players have to pivot or possibly change their strategy in a combat that might be going on a little longer than you were expecting. If you want the battle to be kill all goblins, then something should happen in the middle of the fight. And typically most fights in D&D should last about 6 rounds, which is about a minute in game. But if you're finding that, like, you're getting past that 6 mark, then adding something to the game will add to that. So, like, for instance, if your thing is kill all the goblins, maybe after 5 rounds, other goblins have heard the commotion, and all of a sudden the party's pincered in between 2 groups of goblins, and now they have to either make a tactical push into a better part of the map or, like, rearrange themselves in some way to make themselves better fortified. Maybe instead of that, one of the goblins sets up a trap, and now the cave is collapsing in certain areas, and there's a chance the players might get hurt under the debris that's falling around them. And now they have to leave the area and get to their objective before the cave collapses. Like, having a timer for your game will keep people on their toes. Especially when because you'll get to about round 5 or 6, and some people have tuned out. They kind of think, oh, well, we've got this in the bag. I don't need to be paying attention. And that's when shit hits the fan. That's when you want to throw out the big guns if you know that you want combat to last a little longer or have a little more impact, is to be like, all right, now rocks are falling. What do you do?
Sure.
And then finally, I think the last thing at least that I can think of that you can do to make things punchier and make things a little more exciting are upping your description game.
Okay.
I think I like my combat to be just as descriptive as the rest of the game. A lot of the time I ask players to tell me what it looks like when they defeat an enemy so that they're a little more invested. I like to narrate how the goblin, like, managed to cut at you. And I know we briefly talked about this in another episode of something, but, like, for instance, instead of just being like, the orc in front of you hits you for 9 damage and that's it, right? Like, that's boring. And if that's going to be the rest of the combat encounter, like, there's a good chance I might tune out. But if the orc in front of you begins to smack down on your shield with all of his might, and with each smash your arms tire and pain shoots through your arm, now all of a sudden, there's a little bit of, drama there. There's like, oh shit, like, we need to get rid of this orc and fast, or otherwise I might not live through this. Maybe the goblin kicks sand up into your eyes, and in that moment he slices into your leg, leaving a stinging sensation as blood begins to pool at your feet. Like, oh, now the goblins are, like, they're little monsters. They're terrifying now. There's a little more to them than just, like, I roll the die and I do the thing, right? Like, because that stuff can get really boring very quickly. And, suddenly your game just becomes more exciting just by, adding a little flavor to your fighting.
Yeah, I agree. And then my last major point, and I mean, this might kind of go without saying, but I know that this varies from table to table as well, is, allow, not an excessive amount, but allow some table talk, and allow the opportunity for your party to, or your teammates to, like, plan together and try to, like, coordinate and do cool things. 'Cause I think that there's nothing, better than, I think there's nothing better to give people the opportunity to make a plan and really try make something cool and slick happen during a combat. There's been a couple of times here and there where, like a character acts, maybe a little impulsively one way or the other. And then, it sets up, or, it maybe knocks down something cool that another person was planning, or maybe it doesn't even necessarily make sense in the combat. And sometimes I feel like that sometimes gets a little heated from time to time, depending on your group, the group that you're hanging out with. So I feel like just, making everyone aware that, like, we're kind of in this combat together, and at this point you're a well-oiled machine, so you know the way that each other thinks. So if you want to, like, set up a cool fastball special, you can work to set up a cool fastball special. Like, obviously don't necessarily throw out, like, don't throw out things like, oh, they're like, I know that they're immune to fire because, or yeah, they're immune to fire because like I've read the monster manual. That gets into metagaming. But like if it's a group of people, you know, just like, hey, I'm going to attack number 2, so like maybe focus your big powerful spell on number 3 because number 2 just got, you know, slashed for like 36 points of damage, and you might be wasting a really cool, really powerful spell on a guy who maybe only has like 2 HP left or whatever. So, yeah. You know, just letting everyone communicate means that people are more likely to be on hopefully something of a similar page moving forward. And the more the more your group is working together, the better your combat's going to be for sure.
Yeah, so. And I think that in and of itself is like, it's answering both questions at the same, or it's an answer to both of those things, right? Like if it's a well-oiled machine, it's quick. And if it's a well-oiled machine, then people start to add flavor to it, and like working together is already cool. It reminds me of there's a scene in Metal Gear Solid 4 where there's like this kind of group of like soldiers that are working together, and they're all linked by this like nano machine network, right? And it's all like, you know, they're all connected. So they enter this room and there's like 12 dudes or something, and they're all about to like get shot at, but like they all coordinate and shoot different targets, and like one of them like drops down to like the floor so that they can get like the perfect shot, and then the other one, like instead of shooting directly in front of them, they turn to the side and kind of shoot in between two people to get like the weak spot. It like, you're at least later on in your campaign, you're an adventuring party. You should, like, I know we kind of skip a lot of the, or at least in my games, we skip a lot of the, you guys talked for 3 hours about like, what do you do when like goblins attack you from all sides kind of a thing? Because like that would take forever, and like that's not always an interesting like conversation to have like in game. But you're an adventuring party. You should be paranoid. You should be trying to plan for everything because the world is out to get you. So I love this idea of like working together and like having cues or being like, hey, grab that one, and doing that kind of. I know people like call it metagaming, but I do feel like that's like within the realm of reason.
Sure.
And it's very cool, and I think that helps to make combat quick and punchy, is to do cool things like this.
I feel like if you're saying things like, oh, that thing is immune to ... or it's a specific name from the monster manual, like how does your character know that? You're probably just meeting something like this for the first time or whatever. Like that sometimes can get a little like, oh man, you're breaking my immersion. But like if it's like, hey, like, you know, oh hey, we know how to handle a horde battle. We handled a horde battle here. Or like you said, like remember that one night where like the two of us stayed up on like a night watch, and we planned out like what it would be like if we were fighting a whole like herd of goblins or whatever, you know, things along those lines. So.
Yeah, or like, me and my buddies stayed up for a night watch to teach ourselves the fastball special, and like,
sure,
you know, there's a bunch of like in-game ways to like narrate like why you guys are like cohesive, like, and that's why I'm careful about, because like I remember when I first started trying to slow things down, or trying to speed things up rather, I had a timer, and you could metagame and like do all this stuff, but you only had through the hourglass, and that just kind of became a monotonous thing to do. And then it also just kind of became this thing where like people are trying to like have a conversation to like figure out the specifics, and then it's like, oh, time's up, you're done. And it felt very like I'm slapping the player on the wrist with a ruler, and that's not something that should be like applauded. That's like, to me, that's not a good DM, is like when you're punishing people for trying to be creative in the space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think with these techniques, we got fast and punchy combat. I mean,
I feel like we got some fast and punchy combat. I'm looking over at the book right now, and it's looking at me, and it gave me a little coy wink. It was
ooh.
Like, you know, that's of course the international book language for you did a good job.
Nice.
But yeah. So we solved this mystery.
Yeah, this
solve this lore mystery.
This is the one for the books, the weird book that keeps following us.
Yep, that we are soul bound to follow.
Nice.
So. Hey Cody, if people liked this episode and they want to learn more, how can they learn more?
Oh man, they can go to our website at www.fandomroulette.com, where all of our episodes go live when the rest of these episodes air. And if you go all the way to the bottom, you can fill out a little questionnaire, or not a questionnaire, it's a little handout where you can basically put whatever you want. So if you want us to talk about something very specific on Loremaster's investigation, you can do it there.
It goes into the book then.
Yeah, it does go into the book.
I don't know how it works. Hey, and Cody, if people want to hit us up on social media to share their thoughts or show us a funny thing that they like or show us fan art that they're making or something like that, where are places that they can go to do that?
Oh boy, we're on Twitter at fandomr_podcast. So if you want to send us like the cool things you're working on, or maybe some things that you just like to ask us about, like what we're planning on doing, what we're doing, like we'd love to hear from you. We're also on Facebook and Instagram, all at Fandom Roulette. And if you're looking to send this to other of your friends or what have you, we're on basically everything. Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, YouTube, all of that stuff under Fandom Roulette.
Yeah. And then, hey, Cody.
Yeah.
I just want to say, if anyone's listening out there, please remember to like, rate, review, subscribe, ring the bell. All of that stuff. Give us a positive note. Tell a friend. All of those things, because hey, this is fun, and we want you to join us on this weird little nerdy party that we are throwing together. So
yeah, any likes, rates, and reviewings would be greatly appreciated, as it helps us get more noticed on these internet oceans filled with other content. So we appreciate any and all of those things.
Agreed. And hey Cody, any final thoughts, or are we gonna wrap this up?
Nah, I'm good, baby. This was a good one. Quick and punchy combat.
Yeah, and a quick and punchy episode.
Yeah.
Hey, and so signing off for Fandom Roulette, this is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.